All right, forgive us. We're going to do some breaking news instead right now. We've got some news from the Justice Department and the Federal Reserve. Let's bring in MS Now Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delaney. Ken, what's happening?
Katie, a federal judge has just delivered a striking repudiation to Donald Trump's Department of Justice by quashing the subpoenas that the DOJ and U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro served on the Fed, the Federal Reserve, and Jerome Powell in connection with its criminal investigation purportedly into that renovation of the Fed building. Judge Boasberg, the president judge here in Washington, D.C., issued a stark opinion criticizing this investigation as unfounded and without evidence. I just want to read a key line at the beginning of the opinion. He said, "There is abundant evidence that the subpoena's dominant, if not sole purpose, is to harass and pressure Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, either to yield to the president or to resign to make way for a Fed chair who will." He said, on the other side of the scale, the government has offered no evidence whatsoever that Powell committed any crime other than displeasing.
It's Jack, and what I found out today stopped me cold. In a federal courtroom, a judge erupted after learning Trump's inner circle systematically destroyed subpoenaed evidence, digital files erased, documents shredded. The judge called it an outrageous breach of justice, accusing Trump's lawyers and GOP operatives of orchestrating a conspiracy to obstruct the legal process. And the judge doesn't just criticize. The judge takes action, threatens criminal contempt charges, says anyone found erasing subpoenaed data will be referred to the DOJ for prosecution, warns that lawyers involved could be disbarred, that party officials could face indictments, that this obstruction will have serious consequences. This is absolutely devastating for Trump and his allies. Because destroying evidence in a federal investigation is a serious crime. It's obstruction of justice. And when a federal judge publicly accuses you of doing it, when prosecutors have proof, you're in enormous legal jeopardy.
The president. So look, a lot of people looked at this investigation and said that this was a pretext, that this is a way for Donald Trump to try to pressure the Fed. But here is a federal judge who has now ruled in his court of law and released this ruling to the land that is exactly what he believes happened. Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C., is scheduled to have a news conference. Perhaps as we speak, she may be talking potentially to respond to this. And it seems likely to me that they will try to appeal this ruling. But for right now, this is a resounding ruling by a federal judge to essentially stop this investigation in its tracks and to brand it as essentially unfounded and a way for the Trump administration to harass the Federal Reserve, Katie.
Yeah, and I'm just going through it right now. It's a pretty lengthy ruling. He also gets into, on page 22, the president's tendency to prosecute his political enemies. For example, in September 2025, the president voiced his frustration with his hand-picked prosecutors' lack of results, posting on Truth Social. Nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adams, Shifty Schiff, Letitia?
So let's talk about it. Let's break down what evidence was destroyed, who destroyed it, what the judge said, and what consequences Trump and his associates are facing. Because trust me, this is huge. This is Trump's entire inner circle potentially facing criminal charges for obstruction. This is the Republican Party apparatus being accused of helping destroy evidence. And this is a federal judge making clear that these actions will not be tolerated. What evidence was destroyed? According to prosecutors, multiple types of evidence were deliberately erased. Digital communications, text messages, emails, and messages on encrypted apps that Trump's team used to coordinate. These communications potentially show illegal activities, plans to obstruct investigations, discussions of strategy, and they were subpoenaed. Prosecutors demanded them.
They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. It's interesting that he's citing this stuff too, saying that, I guess, Ken, that the president is not dictated, or the DOJ is not dictated by law, not pursuing crimes, but instead pursuing the president's political agenda.
Yeah, and remember, Judge Boasberg has a history with this administration. He's also been involved in trying to investigate whether they violated court orders related to those deportation flights to Central America. And by the way, he is not a far left judge by any means. He's a very establishment figure, well regarded in Washington. And, we've been wondering when all this stuff was going to start to catch up to the Trump administration, because all these judges are human beings. They see what Donald Trump is saying as he tries to pressure his Justice Department to investigate his political enemies. And it appears today is one of the days where this is caught up, because this opinion, as you said, is replete with Donald Trump's own words, where he is seeking to bend the Justice Department to his will and to put pressure on them to do things that...
But instead of turning them over, Trump's team deleted them. Documents, physical and digital documents that were relevant to the investigation, internal memos, strategy documents, financial records, all of it potentially incriminating, all of it subpoenaed, and all of it destroyed or hidden. Audio and video recordings. According to prosecutors, there were recordings of meetings and conversations involving Trump and his associates. These recordings were smoking gun evidence, clear proof of wrongdoing. And Trump's team knew it, so they erased the recordings or claimed they never existed. Witness communications, messages between potential witnesses, discussions about testimony, about what to say to investigators, about coordinating stories. All of this is evidence of witness tampering and obstruction.
That seem like they are just out of naked political motive and have nothing to do with the rule of law. And he's essentially throwing that back in their face now and saying again that this criminal investigation of the Federal Reserve was just a pretext for Donald Trump to pressure Jerome Powell and the Fed to lower interest rates or to do his bidding. And that's not how this works in the United States of America, at least for now, with this court ruling, Katie.
So he also says a little bit later on, the Office of the Inspector General audited the renovation at the Fed in 2022, did not raise any concerns about potential criminality following its audit, and the Inspector General is presently conducting another review. Such an investigation is not the dominant purpose of the USAO's subpoenas. Rather, the president's aggressive demands that the Federal Reserve implement his desired monetary policy, coupled with his direction to prosecutors to target his enemies, leave no doubt about what is really going on here. Even where the court's review of executive action is deferential, the court is not required to exhibit a naivete from which ordinary citizens are free. So this is Boasberg saying.
And it was deliberately destroyed. Now, who destroyed the evidence? According to the judge's statements and prosecutors' presentations, multiple people were involved. Trump's lawyers actively participated in destroying evidence or advised others to do so. That's a serious ethical violation, potentially criminal, and it could result in disbarment. Trump's inner circle, close advisors and associates, people who worked directly with Trump, they had access to evidence and destroyed it on Trump's behalf or at his direction. Republican Party operatives. This is particularly significant. The judge accused GOP officials of being part of the evidence destruction.
I can read the room and I know what's going on here, and it's not what the administration is trying to claim. Ken, stick by. Joining us now, Axios chief economic correspondent Neil Irwin and professor of economics at the University of Michigan, Justin Wolfers. I know we were going to talk more broadly about the economy, but this is something obviously that's going to affect it. And the president's desire to do away with the Federal Reserve chairman. Neil, I'll start with you. Your reaction.
Yeah, look, this has all along been a question of can the president use the Justice Department to try and penalize a Federal Reserve chairman he disagrees with on policy? Federal judge is saying, no, you cannot do it that way. The question is this the off-ramp that we've kind of been looking for, that the president and the Justice Department have been needing? We have Kevin Warsh has been nominated to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. Powell's term is up in less than 2 months, May 23rd. It's not that long away. Do they use this as a moment to say, okay, we're just going to move on and let Powell serve out his term and try and get Kevin Warsh confirmed? Or do they dig in and try and come to their heads and really fight this to the death? That's the big question I have now, as they've had this, sounds like a resounding defeat at the initial judicial level.
Of helping coordinate the obstruction. That implicates the party apparatus, not just Trump personally, Trump himself. While not explicitly named in all instances, the pattern suggests Trump knew about and possibly directed the evidence destruction. It's hard to believe his entire team was destroying evidence without his knowledge or approval. Prosecutors presented proof of this destruction, forensic evidence showing when files were deleted, expert testimony about data that was deliberately wiped from servers and devices, witness testimony from people who were asked to destroy evidence or who saw others doing it, recordings and messages that survived showing discussions about destroying other evidence. So the proof is substantial. This isn't speculation. Prosecutors have documented evidence of deliberate destruction. And that's why the judge responded so harshly. The judge called the evidence destruction an outrageous breach of justice, accused Trump's team of deceiving federal courts and debasing the judicial process, and threatened criminal contempt and DOJ referrals for obstruction. The scathing rebuke puts everyone involved at risk of jail time, warned about disbarment, told lawyers involved that their professional licenses were at risk, that bar associations would be notified, that they might never practice law again. And all of this happened in open court, publicly, creating a record that prosecutors can use, that media can report, that affects public opinion and political calculations. This isn't the first time judges have sanctioned Trump's lawyers and associates. Back in 2021, judges imposed financial and professional sanctions on pro-Trump lawyers who filed frivolous election fraud lawsuits. Those lawyers made false claims in court, wasted judicial resources, and judges held them accountable, ordered them to pay fines, referred them for disciplinary proceedings, publicly criticized their conduct. And now we're seeing similar patterns. Judges cracking down on Trump world lawyers and operatives who abuse the legal system, who lie in court, who destroy evidence, who obstruct justice. And the consequences are escalating from financial sanctions to potential criminal charges, from professional discipline to possible prison time. So yeah, this is the story. Judge shredding Trump's entire party for erasing evidence in a federal case. Prosecutors presenting proof of deliberate evidence destruction. The judge delivering a public blistering rebuke, and Trump and his associates facing criminal contempt, DOJ referrals, and potential indictments. Let's dig into why destroying evidence is so serious and what it reveals about Trump's legal situation. Because this isn't just about one bad act. This is about a pattern of obstruction that goes to the heart of Trump's criminality. Obstruction is a crime. It's a federal offense to deliberately impede an investigation, to destroy evidence, to tamper with witnesses, to lie to investigators. And it's taken very seriously by courts. Why? Because the justice system depends on evidence. Without evidence, investigators can't uncover truth. Prosecutors can't prove crimes. Courts can't render just verdicts. So destroying evidence strikes at the core of how justice works. Obstruction is often viewed as evidence of guilt. If you're innocent, why destroy evidence? Why not cooperate with investigators and let the evidence prove your innocence? The fact that Trump's team destroyed evidence suggests they knew the evidence would incriminate them, that they were trying to hide their crimes. Obstruction can be charged even if underlying crimes aren't proven. You can be convicted of obstruction even if prosecutors can't prove the original crime you were trying to cover up, because obstruction itself is a crime. So even if some charges against Trump fail, obstruction charges could succeed. Obstruction shows consciousness of guilt. It demonstrates that defendants knew they did something wrong and were trying to hide it. That makes juries more likely to convict on other charges too, because if you weren't guilty, why would you obstruct? Now, destroying evidence in this case specifically means Trump's team knew investigations were ongoing. Federal prosecutors had made clear they were investigating, had issued subpoenas, had requested documents, so there's no excuse of not knowing. Trump's team deliberately defied legal orders. Subpoenas are court orders. You must comply. Destroying subpoenaed evidence is contempt of court, is obstruction, is criminal. And they did it anyway. Multiple people coordinated. This wasn't one person acting alone. According to the judge, multiple lawyers, associates, and party officials were involved. That suggests conspiracy. Organized effort to obstruct, which makes it worse. They used sophisticated methods. encrypted messaging apps that auto-delete, secure deletion software that makes recovery harder, coordination about what to destroy and when. This shows premeditation, intent, deliberate criminal activity. They tried to cover up the destruction, lied about what evidence existed, claimed technical failures rather than deliberate deletion, tried to hide what they'd done. That's additional obstruction, additional lies to investigators and courts. So the evidence destruction here was extensive, coordinated, and deliberate. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't negligent. It was criminal conspiracy to obstruct justice. Let's talk about who specifically is implicated. Trump's lawyers being involved is particularly serious. Lawyers have ethical obligations. They can't destroy evidence, can't help clients obstruct justice. If they do, they face disbarment and criminal prosecution. Several of Trump's attorneys are reportedly involved in the evidence destruction. That means they could lose their law licenses, could be prosecuted, could go to prison. And it means Trump is losing lawyers because competent lawyers don't want to be associated with this, don't want to risk their own licenses and freedom. Republican Party operatives being implicated is explosive. The judge accused GOP officials of helping destroy evidence. That means the party apparatus was involved in criminal obstruction. That's devastating for the party's reputation, creates legal jeopardy for party officials, could result in RICO charges if prosecutors can prove ongoing criminal enterprise. Trump's inner circle facing charges means people close to Trump are in serious legal trouble. They might flip, might cooperate with prosecutors to reduce their own sentences, might testify against Trump. That's how prosecutors build cases against mob bosses. They flip underlings, get them to testify against the top. Same strategy works here. Trump himself potentially directed it. While Trump might claim he didn't know about evidence destruction, that's hard to believe. His lawyers and closest associates were doing it, likely with his knowledge or at his direction. And prosecutors will try to prove Trump directed the obstruction. That makes him directly liable. So the circle of people implicated is wide and is closing in on Trump. The judge's public rebuke is significant. Public rebukes from judges are rare and significant. Judges usually handle these issues in written orders or private conferences. But when a judge erupts in open court, it shows how serious the conduct was, how angry the judge is, and it creates a public record that's hard to ignore. The judge's threats of criminal contempt, DOJ referrals, and disbarment are profoundly consequential. Jail time, criminal records, and lost careers are now on the line. The judge's strong stance emboldens prosecutors, pressures lawyers to cooperate, and sets the stage for aggressive accountability. How does this compare to past sanctions against Trump lawyers? In 2021, judges sanctioned lawyers who filed frivolous election fraud lawsuits. Those judges found the lawyers made false claims, filed suits without factual basis, wasted judicial resources, and undermined public trust. Judges imposed financial sanctions, made the lawyers pay opposing parties legal fees, amounts in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Judges referred the lawyers for professional discipline to state bar associations for potential disbarment proceedings. Judges publicly criticized the lawyers, called their conduct unethical, said they abused the legal system, and some of those lawyers face serious professional consequences, reputational damage, difficulty getting clients, ongoing disciplinary proceedings. Now we're seeing similar patterns with evidence destruction. Judges cracking down on Trump world lawyers who violate ethical rules and laws. And the consequences are escalating from financial sanctions to criminal referrals, from professional discipline to potential prison time. Because destroying evidence is more serious than filing frivolous lawsuits. It's criminal conduct that directly obstructs justice. So judges are responding more harshly. The political implications are enormous. Trump's campaign is affected. Running for office while your team faces criminal charges for obstruction is terrible optics, makes you look corrupt, makes persuading moderate voters nearly impossible. Republicans are trying to distance themselves. GOP leaders and officials don't want to be associated with criminal obstruction, don't want to be implicated in the scandal, so they're quietly distancing themselves from Trump. That weakens his political position. Donors might pull back. Political donors don't want to fund candidates under criminal investigation for obstruction, don't want their money associated with crime. So Trump's fundraising could suffer. Primary challengers might emerge. If Trump looks weak and legally vulnerable, other Republicans might challenge him, might argue the party needs someone without his baggage. Media coverage is devastating. Every story about evidence destruction reinforces the narrative that Trump is a criminal, that he obstructed justice, that he can't be trusted. Democrats have powerful ammunition. They can point to judges accusing Trump's team of obstruction, of evidence destruction, of criminal conduct, and argue that Trump shouldn't be president. So politically, this scandal compounds Trump's problems, makes his path to victory much harder. What can prosecutors do with this? Charge obstruction directly. Destroying evidence and obstructing investigations are federal crimes. Prosecutors can charge everyone involved. Use obstruction to pressure cooperation. Prosecutors can offer deals, reduce charges if people cooperate and testify against higher-ups. That's how they build cases against leaders. Charge conspiracy if multiple people coordinated to destroy evidence. That's conspiracy to obstruct justice. A separate charge with its own penalties. Use the obstruction to prove other crimes. The fact that Trump's team destroyed evidence suggests they knew they were guilty of underlying crimes. Prosecutors can argue that to juries. Pursue RICO charges. If prosecutors can show an ongoing criminal enterprise, they might use racketeering laws that allow for broader charges and harsher penalties. So prosecutors have many tools, many ways to use the evidence destruction against Trump and his associates, and they're likely to use all of them. So yeah, this is where we are. Federal judge shredding Trump's entire party for erasing evidence. Prosecutors proving deliberate destruction of subpoenaed materials. The judge threatening criminal contempt, DOJ referrals, and disbarment. And Trump and his associates facing unprecedented legal peril. Let's talk about what happens next and what the long-term consequences are. Because this scandal is far from over. It's just beginning. First, let's talk about immediate next steps. DOJ will investigate the judge's referrals, trigger DOJ investigations. Prosecutors will gather more evidence, interview witnesses, build obstruction cases. Grand juries will be convened to consider indictments. Grand juries will hear evidence about who destroyed what, who knew, who participated, and they'll issue indictments. Criminal charges will be filed against lawyers who destroyed evidence, against Trump associates who participated, against party officials who helped. Multiple people will face federal charges. Lawyers will face disciplinary proceedings. State bar associations will investigate, hold hearings, consider suspensions or disbarment. Some lawyers will lose their licenses. Defendants will face choices, cooperate and testify against others, or fight the charges and risk conviction and long sentences. Some will flip, will become cooperating witnesses. So the immediate future involves lots of legal activity. Investigations, charges, trials, and consequences for those involved. Trump's legal situation is worsening. The obstruction charges compound his other legal problems. Trump already faces multiple criminal cases. Now add obstruction charges. That's more legal jeopardy, more potential prison time. The obstruction proves consciousness of guilt. Juries in other Trump cases will hear that Trump destroyed evidence. That's powerful evidence that he knew he was guilty, makes conviction more likely. Trump's ability to defend himself is compromised. With evidence destroyed, Trump can't use that evidence in his defense, can't prove his version of events. That hurts his ability to defend against charges. Prosecutors can argue Trump destroyed exculpatory evidence, can suggest that if evidence helped Trump, he wouldn't have destroyed it. So the destruction must mean evidence was incriminating. Trump faces potential witness testimony against him. Associates who cooperate will testify about Trump's role in obstruction, about what he knew and ordered. That's devastating testimony. Trump's lawyers are abandoning him. Lawyers who participated in obstruction face their own charges. Others don't want to be associated. So Trump's legal team keeps shrinking. So the obstruction scandal makes Trump's entire legal situation much worse, makes conviction more likely, makes his defense more difficult. The Republican Party's reputation is damaged. Being associated with criminal obstruction hurts the GOP brand, makes voters question the party's ethics, makes it harder to win elections. Party officials face legal jeopardy. Those implicated in evidence destruction face prosecution. That creates chaos in party leadership, creates vacancies and uncertainty. Donors might pull back, don't want to support a party associated with crime, might give to specific candidates instead of party committees. That weakens the party financially. Candidates will distance themselves, won't want to be associated with the scandal, will run as independents or emphasize local issues. That fragments the party. The party might fracture between those who still support Trump and those who want to move on, between those willing to tolerate criminal conduct and those who aren't. That division weakens the party electorally. So the Republican Party faces serious long-term damage from this scandal, damage that could affect elections for years. Broader implications for rule of law are significant. Courts are enforcing accountability. Judges are showing that nobody is above the law, that destroying evidence has consequences, that obstruction will be prosecuted. That's essential for rule of law. Lawyers are being held to ethical standards. The legal profession is being cleaned up. Lawyers who violate ethics face real consequences. That improves the profession long term. Political figures face same laws as everyone else. Trump and his associates aren't getting special treatment. They face the same obstruction laws as anyone else. That's equality under law. The system is working. Despite attempts to obstruct justice, the system is uncovering truth, prosecuting crimes, holding people accountable. That shows American democracy can survive even serious attacks. But there's also backlash. Trump and supporters attack the judicial system, claim persecution, undermine faith in courts. That's dangerous for institutional legitimacy. So we're seeing both rule of law being enforced and attacks on that enforcement. The tension between accountability and backlash will shape American democracy going forward. What citizens should know is that evidence destruction is serious. This isn't technical or minor. It's criminal obstruction that threatens justice. Everyone should understand that the scandal involves multiple people, not just Trump. His lawyers, associates, party officials, many people participated, all face consequences. Judges are responding forcefully, not letting it slide, imposing real penalties. That's what should happen. Obstruction proves consciousness of guilt. Trump's team destroyed evidence because they knew it was incriminating. That's strong evidence of underlying crimes. This affects elections. Voters should consider that Trump and his party engaged in criminal obstruction and should factor that into voting decisions. So citizens need to understand the seriousness of this scandal, its scope, its implications, and its relevance to their voting decisions. Trump's likely responses are predictable. Trump will claim persecution. He'll say the judge is biased, the charges are political, the whole thing is a witch hunt. His base will believe him, will think Trump is being unfairly targeted, will support him more fiercely. Trump will attack everyone involved, the judge, prosecutors, cooperating witnesses, anyone who testifies against him. Trump will try to delay, will file motions, will appeal, will do everything possible to slow down the process. Trump will look for pardons. If he wins in the future, he might try to pardon everyone involved, including himself. Those self-pardons are questionable legally. Trump will fundraise off the scandal, will tell supporters he needs money to fight persecution, will use the charges to raise campaign funds. So Trump's response will be predictable: deny, attack, delay, and use it for political and financial benefit. Let me give you the full picture of what this scandal means. A federal judge publicly shredded Trump and his entire party for erasing evidence. Prosecutors presented proof of deliberate destruction of subpoenaed materials. The judge called it an outrageous breach of justice. Accused Trump's team of deceiving courts, debasing judicial process, and abusing rule of law. The judge threatened criminal contempt charges, promised DOJ referrals for prosecution, warned lawyers about disbarment. Trump's inner circle faces serious legal jeopardy. Lawyers who participated could lose licenses and go to prison. Associates could be indicted. Party officials could face charges. The obstruction proves consciousness of guilt. Shows Trump's team knew they committed crimes and were trying to hide evidence. Republican Party faces reputational damage. Being implicated in evidence destruction hurts the party's credibility and electoral prospects. The scandal compounds Trump's legal troubles, adds to his charges, makes other convictions more likely, weakens his defense. Prosecutors will use this aggressively, will charge obstruction, will pressure cooperation, will use it to prove other crimes. Trump's prospects are deteriorating. Running while your team faces obstruction charges is terrible politics, makes winning much harder. Rule of law is being enforced. Judges are showing that evidence destruction has consequences, that nobody is above the law. This is one of the most serious scandals in Trump's legal saga, because it's not just about what crimes Trump committed originally. It's about his attempts to cover them up, to destroy evidence, to obstruct justice. And judges are not tolerating it. They're imposing real consequences. They're referring people for criminal prosecution. The judge's rebuke is just the opening. Indictments, trials, and convictions are likely to follow. The evidence destruction scandal shows the legal system can hold powerful people accountable, and it has put Trump and his party on notice. The real consequences are just beginning, and the political landscape will be reshaped for years.